Okay, my name is Idan. The project is called Edge Dominance Graph Games on Graphs. And here's my pitch. In many competitive situations, competitors want to get close to their opponents in order to engage with them. But they also want to do it from advantageous positions, and all of it while moving in space. So, for example, the space can be physical, geographical, or it can be virtual, such as the space of product development features. And we use game theory to model these situations and decide the best way to play in these games. Now, I often get asked, is this a cops and robbers situation, where a group of cops tries to chase down a robber who tries to not get captured? And these games are well studied, but our games have several differences that distinguish them from cops and robbers. First, in our games, every player is capable of outmaneuvering the others. Second, in our games, to win, you need to get close to your competitors, but you also want to do so from a better position and a different position. So come check my poster if you want to hear more. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Eugenie. I'm a fourth-year PhD student at ECS. So have you ever used Power BI or Tableau to transform your Excel data into visualizations or dashboards? And have you find yourself spending hours to get yourself familiar with the data sets to find the right transformations to apply to, when instead you could spend the time doing something more creative? And so my research helped BI tool users like you get your data ready within minutes. So please come to poster 10 for more information. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Fisher. My project is on designing hardware accelerators for sparse tensor algebra. And next slide, please. So, oh, shoot, that's okay. So basically, the problem is that a lot of applications operate on sparse data, but if you go to the next slide, we'll see that the sparse data is very unevenly distributed in a tensor. And so the problem is, if you try to sort of take different parts of this tensor, you'll see that they have different amounts of non-zeros. And so if you have a chip, there's going to be different amounts of data in the chip for different tiles. What that will mean is that your chip is not very well utilized, and that's a waste of resources, right? So what we propose is we propose to sort of use the ideas from airlines where they sell more tickets than are available. And the result is that we're able to improve buffer utilization without improving hardware cost. If you want to learn more, please see my poster. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Today I'll be talking about scalable routing in a city-scale Wi-Fi network for disaster recovery. So as we're increasingly finding out, the internet is fragile. What we're seeing is that increasingly small occurrences such as hurricanes or war scenarios or even small human bugs takes out the internet for whole entire countries. So our proposal is a new city-scale Wi-Fi mesh network, which is built on existing hardware. What we've seen is that there's already enough commodity Wi-Fi devices where just by using these, we can get connectivity for over millions of devices in a single city. And at the core of our design is a new scheme which uses existing maps to route packets. And what we've so far developed is a real-world testbed to test this. And as of now, we have over 200 Wi-Fi devices all across MIT developed, and we're currently increasing this number. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Panta, and my colleague here is Kimia, and we have brilliant Joe over there. Today, we're here to talk about Saval. Saval means a question in Persian, Hindi, Arabic, and Urdu. Have you ever designed a quiz or a problem set? Well, if you have, you've noticed how difficult of a task it is. It's time-intensive and cognitively very difficult. So we ask whether we can automatically generate questions using large language models. But off-the-shelf large language models are not good at our task. Our task is to generate, to have a scalable, domain-agnostic system to test deep understanding. Let me introduce you to CSAIL. In CSAIL, first the main ideas are extracted from the document. Then they're ranked based on the importance. And then for each of the main ideas, the relevant passages are retrieved from the original document to generate the questions from.
Our experiments show that among 76 offers of conference papers and PhD dissertations, questions that were generated by CSAIL were much more preferred by a direct prompting approach on all of the question quality metrics. And we also wanted to see if we can use GPT-4o or AI as a judge to evaluate and scale our evaluation on the quality of the questions, but we found out that the human expert scores did not correlate with the scores that GPT-4o gave. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you at our poster session.
Hi, my name is Pascal.
I'm Jofi.
And we're presenting Mantis. Our perspective is that data and information is a metric for which we can understand patterns and insights from the observable universe. So if they exist, we can benefit from applying them to all of our problems.
An issue is that existing solutions are either black box, asynchronous, or requires domain knowledge in data science.
So what we've created is a hierarchical clustering system for which we can interact with these primitives, such as clusters and data points, and understand the context for which they exist within the entire data set. And this allows us to understand components in which parts of problems relate to each other, and allows us to speed up the process of dissecting and understanding data.
Most importantly, compared to a Google search, it doesn't just rank the list of results to you without giving a solid reason, but rather you see the reasoning traces of the model, and the geometry actually also strengthens the model as well. We think of it as a very good way to empower human in the loop in an age where AI is going increasingly monolithic and AI-driven.
Contemporary solutions are often black boxes and exist in chat box with long context and solely focus on next token prediction. But what we want to do is push forward this idea of glass box AI.
We are Mantis, and please come to talk to us if you're interested. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Riley. I'm a postdoc in Manolis Kellis's lab here in CSAIL. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our ongoing work to build tools to enable precision psychiatry with both AI and genomics. And so I'd like to, with only a minute, I'd like to briefly talk about the main problem. And in this case, we have many different approved drugs to treat the same condition. This is something that comes up in the clinic a lot. Depression is one example where there are many classes of antidepressant drugs which have different chemistries and targets. But we also know that treatment response is highly variable, where one patient A, may respond very well to one drug, but then the next patient may respond very well to a different class of drugs. And currently in the clinic, we have a trial and error status quo in which someone comes into the clinic with depression symptoms. They are prescribed the drug. They wait weeks to see what the effects are. They change the dose. They wait more weeks. They try a new drug. They keep waiting. And all this time, patients can be waiting weeks or months without getting treatment for what can, in many cases, be chronic and debilitating effects of something like depression or other psychiatric indications. And of course, there has been a lot of work to try to improve on this trial and error proposition with AI models, in particular using information from electronic health records, such as the list of other medications prescribed to someone, as well as what procedures they've had or what other diagnoses might be concurrent for that patient, in order to try to build powerful predictive models of which drug might be right for that patient. But what's missing from this framework and what we're hoping to bring is genetic evidence and molecular evidence. And so that requires us to get an idea of really what are the molecular bases of disease and how do we incorporate those into a modeling framework. And we're envisioning a future in which, in the clinic 10 years from now, patients have their whole genome sequencing on file as a part of their EHR, a rather commonplace. And so to this end, I would encourage you to come by my poster and hear more about it, but we're taking hundreds of postmortem brain samples, measuring gene expression in millions of cells to identify which genes are disrupted across disorders, and then pairing those with patient mutations and prioritizing individual variants with genomic and deep learning in order to build the next generation of treatment response prediction models. Thank you.
All right. I am Robert Califf, and I'm going to talk to you guys about Procyon, a multimodal foundation model for protein phenotypes. All right. So we can think about knowing proteins in 3 different ways. There's the protein sequence, the amino acid sequence. There's the 3D structure, and there's the function. What does the protein actually do in your body? So we have very good tools nowadays for characterizing the sequence of the protein. We have very good tools for predicting the structure of the protein, but we do not have good high-throughput tools for determining the function of the protein. Experimental characterization of protein function is slow, and it requires a specific hypothesis to test. Computational prediction generally relies on predefined functional categories and transferring those based on homology to new proteins. So what we've done is we've developed a new model where we're integrating a large language model with protein representation learning methods to generate a model that can operate over interleaved inputs of both natural language and proteins. And what this allows you to do is ask questions about proteins and get your responses in natural language or get out a ranked list of proteins that match your input. We have a lot of different use cases that we show in our poster. I am poster number 3, so if you want to come find out more, please come check it out.
That was the correct slide, but now it's not the correct. Can you go back to one of them? Not this one? Okay, this is one. Okay, great. Thank you for being here. Thanks. I'm Shannon. I'm here. Oh, yeah, great. Okay, awesome. Great. Thanks, everybody. I'm Shannon. I'm super excited to be here. I'm going to talk about something about agents. So 2025 is a year of agents, and I guess you've been using all kinds of agents every day. But I want to ask this question: is agents, or maybe are agents, really useful for your daily work? So then, a lot of agents are studied in the black line there, which is they assume they'll take your instruction, they'll do a lot of work, and then they just provide you some output, and then that's it. But then actually, an ideal agent should be like the blue line here, which is you will continuously interact with this agent, do more work, and then supposedly the agent will be able to scale with your effort and then provide more effort. But in reality, a lot of agents are like the green line here, which is, okay, you can touch the agent for the first 2 rounds, you can try to make it do the search, but actually it just don't work that way. And then even worse is like the orange case, which agents are initially helpful, but actually they decline in terms of helpfulness later. And then this is our framework, which is we want to study this so-called collaborative effort scaling for agents. And then please check our poster at stand 17. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Sylvia, so Ziyu Zhang shown on the slide. And let's think about, do you have some multimodal data corpus that you wish to understand? Not like Wikipedia paragraphs or wiki images, but real tabular data with variable column types, images that might reflect your domain-specific knowledge, or maybe documents with text embedded with, experiment charts, and maybe DNA sequences. And maybe you also have these questions expressed in natural language that you want to answer using this data corpus, but they might need multiple data sources from the same corpus to be answered correctly. So what do we do in this case? How do we index this data? How do we overcome this arbitrary modality gap? As you heard 2 minutes ago, we have from Procyon, people are developing foundational models for every modality. How do you use multiple of these models together? And I present to you Caravaggio, a framework where we try to answer these questions. And if you're interested in learning more, please come talk to me at Poster Style 20. And this is work jointly with Professor Caparella, Gerardo, Ferdy, Peter, folks in the data systems group. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Junyi. I heard I only have a minute, so I'm gonna not exceed a minute. So scientists often find themselves in a situation where you want to understand like a dynamic without tracking single individuals. Like for instance, if you work with biology and you want to understand how gene expression in cells change when you're trying to mitigate, for instance, cancer, and to see what's inside of cell, you have to kill it. So there's no way you track any single cell to see their trajectory and know the dynamic. So what we do is we figure out a way, we develop this method, which is an extension of a Schrodinger bridge, which is itself an extension of diffusion generative models to understand the dynamic-driven single cells when you don't have access to any tracking data, but only population-level snapshot. If you want to hear more, I'm in, I think, stand 18. Thank you.
Can you skip to the next one? Great. All right, hi everyone. My name is Courtney, and my research focuses on building hardware accelerators for computations in scientific computing and graph analytics. These computations, like anything from navigating between 2 points on a map or doing some types of optimization problems, are challenging for normal hardware because they're highly sparse, mostly zeros, and they contain a low arithmetic intensity, meaning you access memory in all sorts of irregular applications, and then you're doing that super frequently with only doing a little bit of computation in between each memory access. Next slide. So a lot of prior work attacks this challenge by making what's known as a distributed memory system, where you have a lot of different tiles, each with a small memory, and you achieve very high aggregate bandwidth between your compute elements and your memory. But the problem is, these types of applications that I mentioned a minute ago are very diverse, so you need to be able to program this in many different ways. And you also want your compute to be efficient. And prior work that is programmable has very inefficient hardware because they're trying to adapt and have flexibility. So the next slide. If you want to come learn more about how we solve this problem, you can stop by my poster and I'll tell you about how we're using reconfigurable compute elements and a short data flow task-based execution model in order to make something that's highly programmable and highly performant at the same time. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Michael and I'm presenting my project Looptree. Next. So suppose you have a DNN and the DNN has multiple layers. Now let's focus in on 2 consecutive layers in that DNN. The first layer is going to take some input data, produce some output, which is going to be the input to the next layer. So that's the intermediate data B. Next. What often happens is the way that this is processed is that layer 1 is processed and then the intermediate data B is put in off-chip DRAM and then loaded back to be used in the processing of the second layer. Next. The problem with this approach is that DRAM accesses are expensive. They consume a lot of energy, and they may bottleneck your latency as well. Next. To solve this, you can use Fusion. And with Fusion, you keep your intermediate data in your on-chip buffer. Of course, there is a challenge. If you keep your data in on-chip buffer, you need on-chip memory, and that costs chip area, and that may increase the cost of your chip. Fortunately, if you do Fusion, there are design choices that you can explore in order to make your Fusion more efficient. If you want to learn more, please come check out my poster. Thank you.
Okay, AI in drug discovery is seemingly everywhere nowadays. But most models miss why the drugs work. Our model learns the underlying reasons and uses them to create better molecules. Today, we study each protein separately, wasting billions of dollars. But proteins share foundational patterns, and our model learns them all at once. We built AffinityNet, combining protein, chemical, and patent language data. It now leads the field, topping the Therapeutic Data Commons benchmark with a state-of-the-art ranking. AffinityNet doesn't just predict. It explains why the molecule binds in the first place. And we can now explore the chemical space live in the first panel, and as you see in the second panel, even design new drugs when we find the sweet spot. And using this understanding, we can climb AffinityNet's map using gradient ascent to create ideal molecules. This unlocks a whole new era, AI and humans discovering cures together. To learn more, come see my poster at poster number 9.
Hi, I'm Maggie Du, and I'm presenting our work on accelerating automaton processing. Oops, this is not my slide. Okay, next slide, please. Automaton processing has wide applications in network intrusion detection, bioinformatics, and machine learning. Next, please. Automaton is a finite state machine which processes a stream of input symbols to detect patterns in them. Automaton processing workloads concurrently traverses many automaton graphs, demanding high on-chip storage. Next, please. Now, these automaton graphs are often sparse, having 1 to 2 neighbors per node on average. However, prior work invariably stored these graphs inefficiently using uncompressed representation. Next. Exploiting sparsity can be challenging because as we adopt compressed representations, we gain storage efficiency but may lose access throughput. Next, please. Our contribution is an accelerator that exploits sparsity to get good throughput per area by making the common case fast and the uncommon case cheap. For more information, please check out our poster. Thank you.
I got my slides. So, anybody working here with large language models or vision language foundation models must have experienced that, you have to do this manual prompt engineering, basically, right? So, I have good news for you. We propose a method in which we basically replace humans with. Can I change this, or how does it work? Yeah. So we basically replace humans with an LLM, right? So in this particular method, you don't really need to care about all the mumbo jumbo. You can just visit my poster. But basically here we have an LLM which basically is working in a feedback loop and is basically refining your prompts for you. So you basically put an LLM. You don't have to worry anything about your optimal prompt for your downstream task, and you basically have your final solution after the optimization is performed. So here, I'm not joking. These are the results. The orange line is basically our results, which are always better than the baseline. So yeah, I look forward to seeing you at my poster. Thank you so much.